for coming along. We have a tradition now at these open meetings of introducing my PSLT colleagues or their deputies, as the case may be. And we have the front row today who are going to do the same thing. Should we start, Lisa, with you? Would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Is this working? No,
Just shout.
Just keep going.
Is that what you do?
You don't need to encourage Lisa to shout.
I don't need a microphone. So, my name's Lisa Denny. I'm Head of Research Services here at the University. And today I'm Dr. Andrew Walsh. He's the Director of Research and Business Engagement Services.
Thanks, Lisa.
Hello, I'm Lorraine Beard. I'm Head of Digital Technologies and the Interim Head of Research Services in the Library. I'm here for Chris Pressler, who's the University Librarian.
Thanks, Lorraine.
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Sharple. So I'm Chris Sharple. My role is I'm Head of the Office of the CIO, Services. Today I'm Malcolm Whitehouse, who's the CIO.
Hi, I'm Sinead Hesp. I'm Director of Legal Affairs and Board Secretariat, and I am me.
Good morning, I'm Simon Mary West. I'm Director for the Student Experience.
Hi, I'm Rachel Brealey. I'm Director of Operations for FSC.
Morning, I'm Mark Rollinson, Deputy Secretary, Head of Governance.
Morning, I'm Steve Dauncey, Director of Finance for the University.
Hi, I'm Katie Boyle. I'm deputising for Vicky Goddard, the Director of Faculty Operations in BMH and the Interim Lead for the Strategic Funding Team at BMH.
Mine's not as long as that. I'm Julian Skirman. I'm the Director of Social Responsibility. Morning, everyone.
Morning, I'm Sally Sykes. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing.
Hi, I'm Kate White. I'm the Director of Development and Alumni Engagement. And development, for those of you who don't know, just means fundraising, but we have a silly word for it.
Great, thank you very much, Kate. Thanks, colleagues.
Sorry, Patrick.
Oh, no.
Really sorry, very quickly. I'm Jane Hindle, Head of School Operations in South, and I'm deputising for Wayne Keating, Director of Faculty Operations.
It is a large team. I'm Karen Heaton. I'm the Director of HR.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kenny Nolan. I'm Deputy Director of Estates, and I'm standing in for Diana Hampson this morning.
Okay, we have got to the end. I can see 2 empty seats over here. If you want to come up. I can see 3. There's 1 back there. Are there any more empty seats? We're going to flout the health and safety rules and sit on the steps, Kenny. Are you checking us out? Matt, you got out of that, introducing yourself. Okay, fantastic. We have a lot on the agenda this morning, and I'd like to try and get through all of it and leave as much time as possible for a discussion and Q&A. We've got Slido. I know many of you like Slido. We have Slido. We're going to use it again today. We won't start with it, but we will, with Helen's help, bring it in as soon as we can. So I just want to start really with a thank you. Thank you for making me feel welcome here. And it's coming up to my first year here. I'm totally blown away by that. I just don't know where the time has gone. And it frightens me that we're about to start a whole new year again. But so I want to say thanks for that. I've visited over 30 teams so far. I think I've got around about half the university so far. And I've learned so much from meeting colleagues all around the university. We've had 6 open meetings. We will have had 6 by the time we've done this one and next week's. And that's really wonderful. Over 1,300 colleagues have attended the open meetings in person. 720 have been involved digitally. So welcome to anyone who's watching online today. That's really great. And I think the feedback we've had from you is telling us that you've really found these open meetings helpful. And that's great. That's great because we're all putting time into these events. And so if they're not helpful, we shouldn't be doing them. And I know that my PSLT colleagues have felt that they've been really helpful as well. So let me just restate at the end of the year what I said to you at the very beginning of the year. I really am genuinely committed to listening and engaging with you right across the university, with all our colleagues in PS and academic colleagues in all our schools, faculties, and in the centre. I think it's an incredibly important part of how we do things in this university. And I recognise that it takes time and it takes commitment, but I do think it's really worth it. Okay, but we don't want the format of these events to get stale. You can keep doing the same thing over and over, and there comes a point where you think we're not really getting the same value out of it. And so we will take the opportunity to rethink what we're doing for the next academic year. And what I'd like to hear from you is, what do you think we might do differently? Do you still like this format? Would you like us to do something different in these open meetings? Please feed back, because they're your meetings as much as they are mine and the team's. So that's thanks very much for a really enjoyable first year. I want to talk a little bit about values, and then I'll talk a bit about our people, our values, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the staff survey as well. Now, unfortunately, just because of the timings, we had hoped that Capita, who works with us on this, would have been able to provide all of the detailed results, and we would have been able to publish all the detailed results to our leaders and then to all of you as our teams, and we might have then had a discussion today. Now, that's just not been feasible in the timescales, but that is what's going to happen in the coming weeks and months. So I'll come back to that a bit later. I do want to talk about the consultation that's ongoing on our values, on re-establishing our shared values in this university. And I'm going to embarrass you all, because I want to ask you to put your hand up if you have clicked on the link and shared your stories with us about this university. How many have done it? That's bloody fantastic. I was in a big room yesterday. Not one colleague had done it. No, I mean, I'm talking about a room of 150, and I'm trying not to look at my PSLT colleague whose conference it was yesterday. They all promised to do it if we sent them the link personally, and we've done that. Well, it's great to see that so many of you have. If you haven't done, why have you not done it? You know, our values are your values. We share our values. If you don't share your stories with us, we're not going to be able to identify what our shared values are in this university. And this isn't just a superficial exercise. This is going to go to the heart of our new strategy and our new vision that Matt and the team are developing at the moment. It will shape the way we do things. You know, it will inform how we recruit colleagues. It will inform how we undertake annual reviews. We'll ask ourselves, well, did we fulfill our values this year? Or what could we have done more? So now's the time to have your say in helping us shape what those values are. And please encourage all of your colleagues to do the same outside of here, particularly your academic colleagues, because they just don't like doing this sort of thing. Some colleagues don't anyway. And again, it's really important. If you don't participate, then they can't be said to be yours. And if you're not sure what the link is, I think we might show it at the end. Rachel, Helen, is that right? Yes? Or if not, we'll share it around with you anyway. So our people, our values. The Our Values work is a subset of the wider theme of our people and our values. Just to remind you, this theme, one of 7 themes in our new strategic plan, this theme is at the heart of our plan. There's no debate or discussion about why we're here or what we're doing. We all understand that our university, all universities are here for good. But the feedback from the consultation was very clear that people were very concerned about how we do things, about protecting the good way we do things, but also addressing the things that create challenges for us. And so that commitment is still very strong, and you'll see even more of that as the strategic plan is developed. And within the Our People, Our Values stream, there are 4 sub-themes. There's our values that I've already talked about. There's great people doing great things. And that's work about our organizational model. It's not simply about professional services. It is about activity, professional activity across the university. and thinking about how do we organise ourselves in a way that ensures that we're really high performing, that great professionals are doing the great jobs that they want to do and that the university needs them to do. And you'll hear more about that in due course. Engagement and communication is a really important sub-theme as well, and this is a really small component of engagement and communication. And we will continue to find new ways of engaging with each other, communicating with each other. It's not always feasible to come into the room together. There are other social media ways in which we can engage. You know, the staff survey is a form of engagement, but it only happens once every 2 years. It'll move to once every 3 years. But with Sally and colleagues, we're going to find more effective ways of engaging and working through pulse surveys with focus groups and colleagues right across the university on a themed basis, so that it's not just an annual exercise or a one-off exercise. It's more ongoing, embedded engagement between colleagues in the university, and I'm really excited about what that's going to help us do. Steve wouldn't let me do anything without talking about financial sustainability. Obviously, financial sustainability is a responsibility that we all have for this university. This university is not something that we own. We're only stewards of our university. We're guardians of our university, and we need to ensure that it's here in good health for our successors. And financial sustainability is not an end in itself, but it clearly is incredibly important to ensuring the long-term sustainability of our great university. We also have a theme around people and organisational development, which isn't surprising when you see that this is about our people. And through that work, we will make sure that we continue to build on the really good work that's going on around leadership and development and other activities in the university. I note, and I'll mention this later on, in fact, Jonathan Winter, is there anybody here from L&D today? Yes, hello colleagues, pointed out to me that the highest climber in the charts of the staff survey was L&D activity in the university, which is really good news. We've also got a theme around technology, estates and environmental sustainability. We want to think in a more integrated way about our physical assets in the university. And we want to think about environmental sustainability. That's very topical, isn't it? At 7 o'clock this morning, I sat down on an incredibly cold floor in my corridor with 2 student protesters who spent yesterday and last night camped outside Nancy and my office, reminding us of our responsibilities to the environment, to the planet. And actually, it's wonderful what they're doing, because we deal with all sorts of issues day to day, don't we? We have all sorts of competing, urgent matters we have to deal with, but we have to be reminded, if we don't solve our issues around climate change, then we needn't worry about all the other issues. And so that theme, that theme around technology, estates and the environment is going to play a very important role in our new strategy as well. And finally, digital innovation. And this is everything from just simply recognizing that digital technology is a basic requirement of students now. An awful lot of what we need to do and what we're currently doing through leadership in IT about investing in our infrastructure and our software is just to bring us up to minimum standards, frankly. The business of how we do things in the university should be at a standard that, you know, young kids expect today on their iPads. But digital innovation is also about thinking about pedagogy, about education, about how we offer education, how we deliver education. Hopefully not just here in Manchester, but around the world. And so we'll see through the other work streams, through research and through teaching and learning, hopefully some very innovative ideas about how we make the most of digital in the future. The work stream, the strategic plan is a 5-year plan. So the sub-themes I've talked about, we will develop and roll out over the next 3 to 5 years. The work around great people doing great things is a 3 to 5 year project. And I need to say, and I was asked this question yesterday, we're all tired of change in one form or another. And I understand that. We need to balance the reality that the world we're now in, the uncertainties around funding, the increasingly globally competitive environment in which we operate, means that, you know, things don't stay the way they are, won't stay the way they are forever. Nothing is forever anymore. I don't ever think it was, actually. But what we need to try and do together is get ourselves into a place where we think about the opportunities that come along with change. You know, as human beings, we inevitably default to the negative things about change. But there are just as many opportunities that come along. And if we focus on those opportunities, then I think we'll ensure that we deliver a more successful strategic plan. So that's what all I want to say about our people, our values. We could take questions later on. Those are the subheadings I've just been talking about. Okay, staff survey. Sorry to throw all these numbers at you, but just to give you a flavour of what the survey has been telling us, and then you'll see more detail in due course. So the university headlines, 69% response rate, over 7,000 staff out of about, I think there was about 12,500 staff invited to contribute to the survey. So that's a very good response rate. The professional services response rate was 77%, slightly higher than the university average. So that's really good. 92% say the university is a good place to work. That's bloody incredible. You know, and it's worth reminding ourselves of that, and I suppose we do that maybe on an individual basis as well. We deal with a lot of frustrations day to day, and there are things we'd really love to change, or we'd like SLT to change, or we'd like to change ourselves if we were able to do it. And they're all real. They are all real. I won't deny any of them exist. But ultimately, bottom line question is whether this is a good place to work, and 92% of staff believe very firmly that it is. 81% feel valued, which is a good figure, but that means nearly 20% of staff don't feel valued. That feels far too high, far too high. And so I'm hoping that the work we're doing around values and our people, our values, will improve that score next time round. At a university level, you'll see the three areas where three of the biggest messages that have come out of the staff survey, and that will be a particular focus for SLT. One of them is about SLT itself, about us, about the way we communicate or don't communicate, the way we engage or don't engage. I'm coming in new. I would say that the absolute score, which I can't now remember, I think it might have been 72%, satisfaction with SLT, is in itself actually a good result compared to the sector, but it dropped from the last time, and we don't want it dropping. We want it to go up, so we will work hard on that. And you know, maintaining a positive environment and managing change, these kind of go together as well. Given that there is going to be more change, we all know that. I think we need to work on how we manage change, how we talk about change, how we engage with each other about change. And if you've been to any of my meetings since I've arrived here, I've talked openly about the challenges and opportunities that we will have to consider over the coming years, and how we look at our organisational model over the next 3 to 5 years. And you will continue to hear me talk openly about those things. So some specific professional services results. Job security is good at 67%. The PS results, as you'll see from the screen, tend to be better than the university average. Academic colleagues tend to be less happy than professional services. I mean, you've seen that at the university level results. And that's something we've talked about at SLT. We really need to understand what's behind that, and we need to work together to find ways of addressing it. I'm really pleased that professional services staff tend to be happier. On the one, as an end in itself, I'd like it to be even better, and I'm sure you would as well. But that's not to say there aren't things that we need to address within professional services. I can come back to these later on when I've finished if you want to ask specific questions about them. Learning and development, this was the highest riser. Learning and development, this is really positive, really encouraging. And I've heard great things about the new leadership programs that colleagues have been engaging in the university. I will join the ILP program this coming autumn. I was too late for last year. Well, not that I was too late, but I had an induction program as well that couldn't fit with the dates for the ILP, but I am doing it this year. And every member of PSLT, there are 2 more colleagues who are going to do it this year as well, and then everybody on PSLT will have completed the program. So if you get the opportunity to participate, please do. Job security is good. SLT, well, I've talked about SLT already. So areas of concern are the 3 that we've particularly highlighted. I'm really disappointed with the low level of low completion rates for PDRs in the university. I just don't understand why that's happening. PDRs are opportunities for you and for your managers and your leaders to have a proper discussion about your professional development, about your objectives in the university, about how it's going well, understanding what's not going well, what do we need to do differently to help you to achieve what you want to achieve. So I just don't understand why we're not, I mean, we'll never be on 100% because, you know, people come and go, but we should be 90+%. We should be 95% completion rates on PDRs. It's just not acceptable to be down at 72. So if you haven't had one and you've not been asked to have one, go and ask for it. Demand your PDR. Make sure you get it. The next 2 are worrying. I mean, you kind of superficially go, well, 4%, 8%, not high, but actually they are bloody high. Think about that in real numbers. We have 6,000 PS staff in the university. We need to understand more why people feel like this. And you know, there's a lot of good work already going on here. A lot of good work. I'm trying to remember the campaign, the name of, what's it called? We Get It campaign. But we still need to look at these figures and ask ourselves, what could we do better? What do we need to do more of? And get on with it. Okay, so the broader areas that we will be looking at addressing is a sense of feeling valued. I've already mentioned this. About SLT, understanding the university's values and goals. Well, we need to identify our values, don't we, first? Our goals are coming through our strategic plan work, and they're very clear. And there's a significant buy-in to our goals in the university. The next steps from here, when we get the detailed analysis, Jane Hindle is our professional services champion for the staff survey, and will help make sure that we roll this out in an open, transparent way, that we develop clear action plans, and that we monitor the implementation of the action plans, so that when we come back in 2022 will be the next survey, we'll all aim for significantly improved results than we have had this time round, even though the results that we've had have been quite good. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and use the next, I can't read my watch, how much? 35 minutes for Q&A. Where shall we start? I'm not going to turn Slido on just yet. I'm told to hold Slido back for a minute. We'll get some questions for the floor, and then if we have a lull, we'll go into Slido. And by the way, if we don't deal with all the questions that you have put on Slido today, in the same way we've done this for every other open meeting, you will get a response to every question that you ask. You may not always like the response, but you will always get one. Right, there was a lady here and a lady over there. Do you want to start?
Hi there.
Tell us who you are as well, please.
Hi, my name is Donna.
Hi.
I'm from the library.
Hi, Donna.
Hi there. My question is, so a week after one of the last PSLT sessions where we spoke about the staff survey results and obviously the identifiers of the managing change, communications, PSLT, their listening skills kind of was flagged a week later, the library announced its restructure to its leadership team model, which was fine. And everyone within the library that I've spoke to completely gets the business rationale and the logic behind it. But the bit that jars with everyone that I've spoke to and myself is the way that it was communicated.
Okay.
So, you know, my perception of how it was communicated was the LT had a conversation at 12, an email that, in my opinion, wasn't very well constructed was sent out at 2 o'clock, and then the librarian themselves sent a follow-up email 2 hours later as a result of the kind of response to the initial email. How can we feed back, you know, off of the staff survey results, how can we feed back to PSLT that we don't feel that was done well, here's how we think it could have been done better?
So the fact that you want to raise it and feel you can raise it is really good for me. We're creating an open environment where we can talk about things that go well and don't go well. How you feed back is really simple. You can email me, you can email Chris Pressler, you can email Karen. Anybody can email any colleague on PSLT. It's not difficult. You don't have to go through gateways to email us. We will listen to all constructive feedback. Really, we will listen to it. I would say with the library, and actually with where there's significant restructuring, the challenge we always have is how do we maintain our legal obligations around the change, which requires degrees of confidentiality through there are stage posts that we have to follow, you know, including consultation with the trade unions and these other things. We have to comply with those, but we do flex them as far as we can so that we can be as open as possible. Okay, and that was something that I've said to you at the very beginning. On all of our change, we will try to be more open. We will be more open about change. But I couldn't say to you 6 months ago, do you know what, the leadership team in the library is going to change in 6 months' time? Because if I did something like that, it breaches all sorts of rules. But more importantly, what it does is it creates a certain level of uncertainty unnecessarily for 6 months. And that's not right either. So we work hard to get the balance right. If there are things like the way we communicate could be done better, we will take that feedback.
Yeah, as a manager, it left me feeling a bit useless because I obviously had direct reports and I couldn't go to my line manager because it was happening to them at exactly the same time as it was happening to me. So you had a network of managers feeling useless. They couldn't support the direct reports as well as going through it themselves, never mind LT. And then although there have been all staff meetings, there's still a lot of questions. And there are dates at when things are going to start happening by. But because you've just got this void, this vacuum, it's just become a rumour mill. Yeah. And it just makes people feel more uneasy. And I absolutely get your points, and you don't want to announce things and make people feel uneasy. But similarly, if nothing's happening, just communicate that nothing's happening and just
well, once we're in the process, though, it's not about confidentiality, is it? It's about what's the next steps, what will happen when. And if you're not going to hear anything for a month, you need to know in advance you're not going to hear anything for a month. Exactly. We do give a lot of thought to it, but that's not to say we can't learn and improve. So you give us the real feedback and we will take it on board. Right, there's somebody over here.
Hello.
The chap's, it is a chap at the back. We'll turn it up.
Kate in credit control.
Hi, Kate.
And my question to you is, how will the new values be monitored to ensure it's fair for everybody across the board? It is a difficult task, and people are concerned about that.
Yeah, that's a bloody good question. You know, there are ways that we can embed the values by putting them into our procedures, making sure that when we undertake recruitment processes, they're part of the recruitment questions. And actually, we did use them. We had a discussion about values in our recent recruitment exercise for our vice presidents teaching and learning. Okay, so we can hardwire them in through processes, but ultimately it's going to be about culture. And you know, culture is just the way we do things. So if we want to change the culture, we've got to change the way we do things. Once we've established our shared values, then we all have an obligation and a right to call it out when we're not living by our values.
Is that for everybody?
Yes. I mean, God, values are either shared or they're not. And that's everybody. You can't have an SLT set of values or an academic set of values or a PS set of values. We either have a set of values for our university because we're one university, or we don't. This is still, values is a big debating item in any university, because a lot of academic colleagues will say, you can't have a set of values for a university, for one organisation. We're different tribes and all that stuff. And whilst an academic debate is very good, we still need to do something positively for our university as part of setting our new vision and our new strategy. And how we do things is going to be done differently to how they might have happened in the past. And that's not to say they were done badly in the past. Let me be clear about that. There are lots of things in this university that are truly amazing. But I think the point you're making is that they've not been consistent in the university. And this issue of consistency exists in so many areas, particularly around staff benefits, around working from home, around in lieu time. We just don't apply them in a consistent fashion. It partly reflects the devolved nature of how we do things. We leave it to schools to decide what to do around certain policies. And there are benefits in that. But the real risk is that we're inconsistent and as a result unfair to staff. And part of the work around one PS and great people doing great things is to be consistent, to have a single operating model that is consistent across the university, reflecting the particular needs of some areas of the university, because there are different ways of doing things in certain parts of the university, and that's legitimate, where we might have external partners heavily involved in BMH, for example. But that doesn't stop us from being consistent.
Thank you very much.
Is that okay? Yeah, thanks. Who's next? And you don't have to ask me a question. You can ask one of my colleagues on the front and second and fourth row if you have one. Hi. Hello.
Lindsay Gilbert from
Hi,
Student
Lindsay,
Development. Hi. It's a question about social responsibility. It's a question I've talked to Julian about in the past. It feels like social responsibility, we're doing great things, we're doing really well in the league tables, but it still feels like it's something that belongs to a minority of people in the university. And you talk about culture. And I'd like to know how we embed the social responsibility as a culture so it's everybody's responsibility, so that every decision we make, even if it's the most difficult decision, is based on social responsibility. So things like divesting from fossil fuels, which is obviously been a big debate at the moment, and the protesters have been camped outside our office as well in University Place. How do we reduce the number of flights that happen? I realise that we're not ever going to stop flying, but our carbon footprint must be horrendous. And there are other ways in this day and age with technology that we need to be looking at reducing flights, we need to be reducing our fossil fuels. And it feels like, whilst we're doing really well on social responsibility at the moment, it feels like it's this thing that is the responsibility of a number of people who have it in their title, and it's not embedded in the culture so that it's there as everybody's responsibility. And it's how do we make that step change to start making those difficult decisions because they're the right decisions, whereas at the moment it feels like a lot of the stuff we've done is very the uncontroversial stuff, the stuff that everybody can agree with, and it's going to take some brave decisions to actually make that change onto the next level.
Yeah, so somebody still relatively new coming in, I think you're being a bit harsh on yourselves. I've just been blown away by the commitment to social responsibility in this university. It's really powerful. And whilst I feel quite annoyed that Extinction Rebellion and People and Planet were telling me this morning that the 10,000 actions was greenwashing the issue. That's a new word I've learned, greenwashing. Have you heard that before? Greenwashing. I really object to that. I think we're doing incredible work. I really do think we're doing incredible work. But I think you are right in that we, like the rest of higher education, like society maybe as a whole, need to really up our game over the next 5-10 years. I do think we have an obligation to be a standard bearer. Now there's a balance here around virtue signalling on the one hand versus being a standard bearer on the other. And I think universities should be standard bearers. And I do think we'll look at things like fossil fuel investment very carefully. I mean, I actually think our policy at the moment is ethically responsible. But we need to think about the next 10 years. And we need to I mean, it is one of our 3 goals. I guess what we need to make sure is that what happens below the goals, Steve's going to say something in a minute, below the 3 goals, we need to make sure that what we plan to do under the social responsibility heading is really meaningful and takes us up a level, and that makes sure it is inclusive across the university. The last thing I'll say before I hand over to Steve, I came to the community festival last Sunday. Wow, it was bloody fantastic. It was a great day. So don't beat yourself up too much. We're doing amazing things.
Things like the community festival are easy to do, they're uncontroversial.
Yeah.
The things that are difficult to do are the things that actually affect everybody, affect our business, but are the right thing to do. Things like diversity and inclusion, things like having a real push on reducing flying, for example. They're difficult because they affect how people work, but we have to do them.
Well, they're the next step. They're what I'm referring to when I talk about us stepping up to the next level. And we've got a paper on business class travel coming to SLT on Tuesday.
Yeah, shall I turn around?
Sure.
If I could just pick up, who am I talking? I'm addressing everybody. But I think one of the key things for me out of our futures, the actual response from the consultation there was the huge number of people who valued social responsibilities looking at it came through as such a strong thing. So yes, you might feel that in a way, as it's in your title, you're alone in this. Actually, you're having a huge impact, and everyone who works in this university is wedded to it. I think the other thing is when it comes in, obviously as finance director, it does come in most of our investment decisions. It is discussed, it is considered. And I, as finance director, as part of developing the ethical investment policies we have, this is something, and we've got another investment committee next week, is routinely discussed at investment committees. And actually with UN principles of responsible investment, engagement is actually more effective than divestment. We can make political statements, and we engage with the students on this. So it's not as though we're hiding away from this. We're fairly transparent on what we do. Hence they know it's 11.2 at the moment rather than 10.5 or whatever investment in those companies who are engaged in fossil fuels. And an easy decision would be to say we divest. A hard decision is to say we'll engage and we'll change behaviours. It's a bit like values. What do we value is actually changing behaviours. So that's some of the things. So I think this is central to the things. Equally, for anyone who's in procurement, I'm really proud of what we do in procurement. There's nothing there with social responsibility in the title, but we're sector leader in what we do. And I'll just big up, we've just signed an agreement with the Slavery Free Alliance, which is really great engagement there, the opportunity to talk to students about what goes on in perhaps their home countries and get 40,000 ambassadors about modern slavery. So I think we're doing a lot. Can we do more? Yes.
Just very quickly, so I don't need a microphone as well. I mean, I absolutely agree with the sentiment of Lindsay, why wouldn't I? And I think we do need to go further, and that's a real opportunity in the next iteration of the strategy. We did a presentation yesterday. We have a national conference going on at the moment it's the EAUC National Conference, the Environment Association of Universities and Colleges, which is why a lot of people from the sustainability team are not here today. They're at that conference. Andy Burnham opened and James did a keynote. And I was writing James's speech last week. And if you think what's happened in 12 months as well in the world, Greta Thunberg's strike hadn't begun, no Paris agreement with the 1.5% commitment there around climate change. If you think Extinction Rebellion were just a fringe group, nobody'd heard of them. There was no fires in Saddleworth Moor this time last year. So you think the things that are changing around us, and don't think the universities are separate from all of this. Yeah. Values are something that are fixed at one moment in time, and the university and our policies are a product of us as senior leaders, but also as staff in the institution. So keep pushing us, is what I say. Things never change unless people do keep pushing us. The decisions on how we invest things were taken through a particular process a few years ago. The world changes, and we may need to look at things in the future, but we went through a process, and it was a really open process how that decision was made. Whether you agree with it personally or I do or other people in the room do, I think what you can do is look at the huge and open debate there was on this, and our academic community was split, and it is quite difficult, I think. The easy thing to do would have been to divest, and many people think we should have done that. Lots of our academics think that the definitions around this are more challenging in terms of how do you actually define a fossil fuel company, given that some of them are the biggest investors in renewable energy. So that's quite interesting if you look at BP's plans for trying to do things like electrifying Britain around having more rechargeable facilities for cars. Do you think that is a good thing? Most people would say yes, but at the same time they're doing things which lots of people absolutely disagree with. So it's really complicated, but don't think these things are always fixed. Things are changing around us as well. And I think one of the most inspiring things for us in the university is the amount of expertise we've got. So yesterday, the people from the Tyndall Centre, so we had Kevin Anderson on the panel. We've got people like that. I've got Alice Larkin, who's going to be our head of school in FSE. We've got people like this who are really leading the way internationally, and they have an influence and a say, and we can really draw on their expertise as well.
Good. Thanks, Julian. Who's next? Come on, you're not shy. Do you want me to go to Slido? Okay. See if I can find it. Oh, there we go. Managed to do it on my own. Oh, I like this. Where are we? So we start. Is the student life cycle currently within budget?
Yes. and to be fair, that's probably as much as I know about the student life cycle. Other than the fact that we're releasing, release 1 is in October this year, and we're currently aiming to deliver on that date.
Yeah. The student life cycle project, the new leadership model, the new management model, are all incredibly challenging projects. And we're feeling the pain at the moment. Everyone's feeling the pain at the moment, and will do for the next 12 to 18 months. But let's not lose sight of the fact that they will be transformational. They will be incredible once they're settled and embedded. And what we've got to do now is make sure we keep our wits about us and manage them through to a successful conclusion. We've said this before, and I can say this because I'm Irish, but if you ask an Irishman for directions, he'll tell you not to start from here. We are where we are with the projects, and a huge amount of work's been put into them. But they are major change projects, and they just remind us that how we go about implementing change has to be thought about really carefully, has to be planned for really well, has to be properly resourced over a proper time scale. And with our newly configured PMO under Matt's leadership, and new governance arrangements that we've put in place for change in the future, I'm hoping that we will give ourselves a chance of undertaking change in a less painful way than maybe we've had to in the past. Office 365, please can we have more of a definite implementation date and plan? Yeah, that would be great. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, sure.
I know it's within the next 12 months, actually.
More about Office 365 than I do about student life cycle. So we do have a plan. We have an outline plan now. And by outline plan, I don't mean when every individual in this room will be migrating to Office 365. So basically, to put this into context, we'll be publishing this plan within the next 2 to 3 weeks. We did sign an agreement with a company called HCL. They're our strategic service provider in and around end-user compute services, and they've got an awful lot of experience in transforming organisations around these services. We've been working on that plan already. Malcolm's not here today. Malcolm Whitehouse isn't here today because he's at the steering group, where I know the review of that plan is on the agenda. So key components of the plan. So there's going to be some early adoption in there, or some piloting, so we can try, learn and improve as we roll the plan out. There's going to be robust communications to take us from we're doing an EUC thing to we're doing Office 365, what that can mean for me and my team, and then when that's actually going to happen. And we're also doing some engagement around knowledge articles so that people can get prepared for adopting and migrating onto Office 365. Key date here, so I had a look at the plan, and the expectation is that we will be fully migrated by November 2020, and the early adoption or the pilot projects, they will start running in July.
Good. Are you okay with that? Julie, wherever you are. Next one. Yes. So when I got here, some PSLT colleagues had their calendars open, some didn't. Most hadn't thought about it. We now have all of our calendars open, and we should all be doing it. No doubt about that. Simon, do you want to deal with Unsworth?
Yeah. So the question there is probably less specifically about Unsworth Park. I'll get Kenny to comment a bit in a minute.
Yeah.
Unsworth Park, for those that don't know, is our new student hall of residence, which we're building at the moment. It's 1,100 new ensuite bedrooms down in Fallowfield. It's the first 700 of which will open in September. As the question rightly says, we've tried to put well-being more at the heart of the design of that project than we have done with some previous ones. So, for instance, thinking about the balance between social space and bedroom space, making space in the bedrooms not just for a bed and somewhere to hang up clothes and have a desk, but somewhere actually where you can put a sofa or some seats or some beanbags and socialise with flatmates and friends and others. What we wanted to do from that project is to evaluate some of the initial success of that. We've been working with colleagues in estates and facilities who obviously are working on that project as part of the design team to think about how we then might take some of those lessons and some of the things that work and some of the things that don't, and how can we apply those in other parts of the campus potentially. This comes up a lot, of course, in staff survey every time, and particularly the last couple of years. We've seen lots of examples of particular areas talking about the lack of social spaces on campus in particular, places people can go that's away from their desk to have lunch or make a brew or whatever it might be. And quite a lot of work has gone in the last couple of years on addressing some of that in some areas. There's still quite a bit to do. And also about creating spaces that's not just a cafe area, but other areas that people can go on campus and maybe take a break or meet and so on. And there's been a number of things that have happened in that space as well. So, for instance, just upstairs from where we're sitting at the moment are the well-being rooms. We've got some others around campus as well that people can go. It's a place without no distractions from work and so on. People can kind of have a bit of downtime and sort of reflect and think about what they're trying to get out of their day. Do you want to say anything else, Kenny?
I think it's not just about Unsworth Park, it's about all the projects that we do, really. We look at each of our capital projects and our smaller projects and try to have a lessons learned session after each of the projects. I think there is an industry standard which is post-occupancy evaluation, which, to be fair, I don't think we've been particularly good at over the last few years, but it's something that we are looking at much more and more in the future. And that is about really learning what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong on each of these projects and building them into the next project. It's really difficult to get everything right first time, but generally we do our very best and we're very successful. But there are things that we need to pick up and learn from. Unsworth Park and all the other projects are being treated in that way.
Great, thanks, Kenny. I'm trying to think about what's a clever answer to the next question, and I'm really, if you're asking me personally, what I'm looking forward to and excited about, it's coming into work every day, actually, and it's meeting colleagues around the university and building teams. My job, I think, is about building teams and creating distributed leadership. We're working hard on that as a PSLT. We're thinking about our next layer of leaders, how we can help them and bring them on, how we can exploit the enormous potential that exists in this university. You know, you've heard me say this before. This is a genuinely world-leading university, and it feels like it. But there are some times when it feels like it's world-leading in spite of itself. And really, if we could sort out all the day-to-day issues and problems that we have, and really feel like one team, you know, there's no end of what we could achieve. So I feel very privileged to be in this role. I feel very privileged to be part of the university. So I can't, you know, pick on any one thing. You know, I could talk about the rollout of SLP. My God, that'd be great. Successful rollout of SLP would be great. But it's not that. It's about everything. It's about working with colleagues, working with people like you. Thanks for that question, Marie. Any other questions this morning? We've got, I think, another 10 minutes. 9 minutes.
Neil Chamberlain, staff.
Yeah, hi, Neil.
Hi. It was a quick question prompted by the one about calendar access.
Okay.
And when I came here, I was really surprised how few people have their telephone number on their Outlook details and how very few have their mobile number. And I know, I guess we need people to put those details on, but is there anything more we can do to encourage that? Because it's a major channel of communication.
We have guidance, though, haven't we? I mean, my signature has all of that on it because somewhere there was guidance about putting it up. I'm looking at my colleagues here as well. Sally?
It's in the brand guidelines,
yeah.
and we're very happy to help anybody who wants to do it.
Maybe we should do a reminder to colleagues. Sometimes people think it feels a bit too corporate, but it's not about being corporate. It is a bit about being corporate, being honest. But it's also about enabling more effective communications and engagement with each other.
Yeah.
And a sense of being there if somebody wants to get hold of you.
I think it's a cultural thing, perhaps. When one person said to me when I started, "Come on, nobody uses the phone here," and I think there's something in that.
There is something in that, as I know every day, and the many emails I get. But I also find it hard to be too critical about email use. I think we've got to be. There's great advice on our intranet about how to use email effectively, and we should really, we should really use that advice. But email is a really important form of communication nowadays. It's not a substitute for face-to-face, and this is great, isn't it? But once we've done this, then you know me, I know you, and if you email me over the next 6 months, I know who you are and you know who I am, and you've built that relationship. I kind of think with engagement and communication in the future as well, we'll look at more ways of engaging with each other that's not necessarily email-based, but using other tools that are available in other sectors. You were talking about Twitter chat, and Facebook does Facebook Live. A company that Rachel visited recently uses Facebook Live. Now, we might have moral objections to using a product produced by Facebook, maybe by some colleagues, but tools like that are increasingly available, and we should be using them. Hi.
I just wanted to make an observation about the well-being question.
Yeah.
Obviously, the buildings are really, really important, but so much about the public realm. So Unsworth Park, obviously, for those who know the design, will know that the landscape design is really, really important there, as well as the room sizes and the community space. The other thing that's happening around the campus is the new public realm, Brunswick Park, University Green, some great feedback around the well-being benefits of all of that. I think people feel more relaxed around the campus, and there's more of that to come, I think. So the next iteration of the estate strategy, campus master plan, I think will embody some of those principles as well.
Yeah.
So I think there's more to go, but I just wanted to sort of emphasise the external aspects, I suppose, not just about the buildings, it's about the landscape and the public realm.
Yeah, well, you know my background. I agree completely. It's the spaces between the buildings that has the impact on the most people in any organisation. I thought you were going to make a slightly different point about well-being. It's not just about buildings or environment, it's also about how we treat each other, how we work with each other, how we think about workload and competing demands. And so the great people, great things, doing great things is thinking about those issues as well. There's clearly a specific concern amongst academic colleagues about that, see that from the staff survey. So we're going to do a piece of work to try and understand that better as well, so that we can address those issues. One more.
Hi there.
Hi.
My name's Richard. I'm a CDT manager in the School of Physics.
Hi, Richard.
Just thinking about reading the news yesterday, the Wally that was walking around Exeter University with a replica gun. Just thinking how open and easily accessible some of our buildings are. Just wondering what the university's thinking was on keeping staff and students safe.
Well, of course, we had our own protest yesterday on our corridor. This is a really difficult challenge for universities because, our culture is to be open. Always has been. Partnership and collaboration is at the heart of everything that we do in our universities. And I think if we were to lock down every building, we would lose something incredibly important about the way we do things in our universities. Could we do more than we do? Perhaps, and I guess that's something that we do look at regularly. I would say here our security provision is really very good, and I'm not just saying that because Kenny's in the room. I do think it's very good, but we can't guarantee anything. But I just think we have to weigh up the risks and try and get the right balance. But I personally would feel that if we locked down every building, it would change the culture of the university. And I don't believe it would guarantee that something tragic wouldn't happen. But it's a really good question. Kenny?
I think just to, I'm glad you said low security. I believe our security team are probably the best in the sector. I think what I should say as well, the investment on campus for measures, security measures, has been quite high. CCTV and the equipment that the guys have got, the control room at the PCR, they really have got really top-notch equipment. So we are doing the very, very best that we can to keep everybody safe, and particularly the guys are doing the very best that they can to keep everybody safe. It is a difficult job at times, but I think, as Patrick says, we want to be open and we want to make sure that people can go in and out of the buildings freely and keeping that balance right. But I think we have got that. And again, the team that we've got are pretty much second to none.
Okay, thanks, Kenny. Right, so can I just remind you, you know who your PSLT colleagues are now. Talk to us anytime. We're here to talk to each other. Thank you all so much for coming along this morning and giving us your time. Thanks for engaging in the discussion as well. If you've got any questions that you didn't want to ask and you want to do through Slido or emails direct, please don't leave it unanswered. Ask us the question. And thank you all very much, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.